A crowboy and a biker are on death row and are to be executed on the same day. The day comes and they are brought to the gas chamber. The warden asks the cowboy if he has a last request, to which the cowboy replies, "I sure do, warden. I'd be mighty grateful if you'd play Achy Breaky Heart for me before I have to go." "Sure enough, cowboy. We can do that," says the warden. The warden then turns to the biker and asks,
"And you, biker, what's your last request?"
The biker replies, "That you kill me first."
There was a trial in a small town in Texas. The prosecuting attorney called his first witness to the stand. She was a grandmotherly, elderly woman. He approached her and asked, "Mrs. Smith, do you know me?" She responded, "Why, yes, I do know you. Mr. Jones, I've known you since you were a young boy. And frankly, you've been a big disappointment to me. You lie, you cheat on your wife, you manipulate people, and talk about them behind their backs. You think you're a rising big shot, but you haven't the brains to realize you never will amount to anything." "Yes, I know." The lawyer was stunned, not knowing what else to do. He pointed across the room and asked, "Mrs. Smith, do you know the defense attorney?" She again replied, "Why, yes, I do. I've known Mr. Clark since he was a youngster, too. I used to babysit him for his parents. And he, too, has been a real disappointment to me. He's lazy, and he has a drinking problem. The man can't build a normal relationship with anyone, and his law practice is one of the shoddiest in the entire state." "Yes, I know him." At this point, the judge banged his gavel to silence the courtroom, then called both counselors to the bench. In a very quiet voice, he said to them with menace, "I will tail you for contempt if either of you asks her if she knows me." A 67-year-old man and his grandson were riding on a bus heading downtown to go to the movies when a young punk girl got on. She had spiked multicolored hair that has green, purple, and orange. Her clothes were a tattered mix of leather and rags. Her legs were bare, and she was wearing worn-out shoes. Her entire face and body were riddled with pierced jewelry. She sat down in the only vacant seat that was directly across from the man. The man raised an eyebrow and stared at the girl. Finally, the girl got self-conscious and barked, "What are you looking at, you old fart? Didn't you ever do anything wild when you were young?" Without missing a beat, the man replied, "Yeah. Back when I was in the Navy, I got really drunk one night in Singapore and slept with a parrot. I thought maybe you were my daughter." A married couple is driving duo on the interstate doing 55 miles per hour with the husband behind the wheel. His wife looks over at him and says, "Honey, I know we've been married for 15 years, but I want a divorce." The husband says nothing, but slowly increases his speed to 60 miles per hour. She then says, "I don't want you to try to talk me out of it because I've been having an affair with your best friend, and he's a better lover than you." Again, the husband stays quiet and just speeds up as his anger increases. She says, "I want the house." Again, the husband speeds up and is now doing 70 miles per hour. She says, "I want the kids too." The husband just keeps driving faster and faster. Now he's up to 90 miles per hour. She says, "I want the car, the checking account, and all the credit cards too." The husband slowly starts to veer toward a bridge overpass piling. As she says, "Is there anything you want?" The husband says, "No, I've got everything I need." She asks, "Really? What's that?" As he veers the car off the road at 90 miles per hour, he replies, "The Aornag." As a butcher is shooing a dog from his shop, he sees a $20 bill and a note in his mouth readying, "5 lamb chops, please." Amazed, he takes the money, puts a bag of chops in the dog's mouth, and quickly closes the shop. He follows the dog and watches him wait for a green light, look both ways, and trot across the road to a bus stop. The dog checks the timetable and sits on the bench. When a bus arrives, he walks around to the front and looks at the number, then boards the bus. The buctor follows, dumbstruck. As the bus travels out into the suburbs, the dog takes in the scenery. After a while, he stands in his back paws to push the stop bell, then the butcher follows him off. The dog runs up to a house and drops his bag on the step. He stands on his back paws and presses the doorbell. He does this again and again, but there is no answer. So he jumps on a wall, walks around the garden, beats his paw against a window, jumps off and waits at the front door. A guy opens it and starts cursing and shouting at the dog. The butcher runs up and screams, "What are you doing? This dog is a genius!" The guy at the door replies, "Genius, my butt." It's the second time this week he's forgotten his keys.
A woman gives birth to twin boys, but due to difficult circumstances, she has to give them up for adoption. One of the twins is adopted by a family in Egypt and is named Amal. The other is adopted by a family in Spain and is named John. Years pass, and she often wonders about her twins, hoping that one day they might be reunited. One day she receives a letter in the mail. It's from John. Excitedly, she opens it and finds a heartfelt letter and a recent picture of John. She immediately shows the picture to her husband, her voice trembling with emotion. "Look, it's John. He's all grown up and looks so happy," she exclaims. Husband smiles warmly and says, "That's wonderful, dear." It's so nice to see him after all these years. As she carefully places the picture in a frame, she sighs and says, "I wish I had a picture of Amal, too. I'd love to see what he looks like now." Her husband gently pats her shoulder and tells her, "Honey, they're twins. If you've seen John, you've seen Amal."
A 67-year-old man and his grandson were riding on a bus heading downtown to go to the movies when a young punk girl got on. The girl sat down next to the old man and loudly said, "Hey, old man, I bet I can make you feel really embarrassed with just one word." The old man looked at her and replied, "Try me, young lady." The girl smirked and shouted, "FART." The old man raised an eyebrow, turned to his grandson and said, "Son, when I was your age, we used to get on the bus to have a good time. Now it's just a lot of gas."
An elderly man and his granddaughter were sitting in a cafe when a young guy with tattoos and a leather jacket walked in. He sat next to the elderly man and said, "I bet I can make you feel old with just one word." The old man chuckled and said, "Go ahead, I'm not easily impressed." The young guy leaned in and said, "Podcast?" The elderly man smiled and replied, "Podcast? Son, the only casts I know are the ones I used to wear when I broke my leg playing football in the 60s.
An old lady and her grandson were riding a bus when a young girl with bright pink hair and oversized sneakers boarded. She sat next to the old lady and said, "I bet I can make you feel old with just one word." The old lady smiled and said, "Give it a shot." The girl grinned and yelled, "Filter." The old lady turned to her grandson and said, "Filter? Honey, the only filter I know is the one I used to clean my coffee." A retired man and his grandson were waiting for a bus when a young girl with a hoodie and earbuds boarded. She sat next to the retired man and said, "I bet I can make you feel old with just one word." The retired man smiled and said, "I'm all ears." The girl smirked and shouted, "Streaming. The only streaming I know is when the garden hose bursts and I have to run outside to stop it."